Hey, Allison Verhalen here with AV Writing Services, and today I am talking to you about why you should not do your own content marketing. So I hear this all the time from small business owners, especially solopreneurs. I know it's rough. You have a limited budget. Things can be tight, especially right now during this pandemic. A lot of people are working with a very limited budget. They want to cut corners where they can, and they say, can't I just do this myself instead of hiring someone? Well, okay, yeah, you can. We all know how to write, right? We can all slap together a blog post and put it up on our website and ta-da, we're blogging. Isn't that all I need to do? No. There's a lot more that goes into an effective content strategy that actually succeeds in attracting, engaging, and converting leads online for your business. So if you want, and content marketing is like any other industry, right? It's got its own skill set, its own tools and training. There is software that I use to make sure that, again, I'm using everything from keywords to a good headline to you name it, to make sure that the content is going to be effective and is going to speak to my audience's needs, or in the case of my clients, make sure it speaks to their audience's needs. So a lot of people fail to do that. They think they can just write about whatever they want and whenever they want, whenever they have time, and put it up on their blog, and that's not going to be effective. And then when it doesn't work and it doesn't bring in clients for them, they say, well, blogging doesn't work or content marketing doesn't work. And that's not true. It does work. It can work if you approach it strategically and you keep the customer front and center. A lot of people blog about what's interesting to them without necessarily thinking about whether it's interesting to their customer or how to make it interesting to their customer. It's really easy to say, well, everyone should care about life insurance because of all these reasons. And yes, everyone should care about life insurance. But if you're trying to target people who don't already understand that because they don't already have life insurance, how are you going to make them understand that it's important, that they really do need this now? Not tomorrow, not next month, not whenever something else happens. They need it now. How are you going to communicate that? How are you going to speak to their fears and their pain points in order to sell that? So that's where a content marketer comes in. So we are going to go over the 5 top reasons that you should not do your own content marketing. And the very first one is consistency. I touched on this briefly in my intro, the fact that most small business owners blog when they have time, when the inspiration strikes. Usually as soon as we get busy, blogging is the first thing to fall by the wayside, right? I have client work, I have networking opportunities, I have speaking engagements, I have XYZ, I have a family obligation, whatever it is. Blogging is usually the first thing to fall by the wayside. And sometimes this kind of inertia can build up. If you don't have a schedule where you consistently publish on your blogs every day, week, month, however often it is, if you're not doing it consistently, then as soon as you stop writing, as soon as you let one blog post slip, it's super easy to let the next blog post slip and then the next one, and before you know it, it's been months, sometimes even more than a year since you've written anything. And then Google doesn't know who you are, what you do, because you haven't been publishing new content on your website. Anyone who finds your website and sees that you haven't published anything since April of 2019 is going to go, okay, is anyone even behind this website anymore? Is this just kind of live just out of inertia, because they forgot to cancel their subscription or whatever? And they're going to wonder if that content is still relevant. We live in a world where things are constantly changing and people are constantly updating their content and giving out new tips and saying, yeah, last month I said such and such, and turns out this month that's not the case anymore because something changed. So the older content is generally viewed as not being as relevant. The newer, fresher content is much more likely to show up in searches. So hiring a content marketer, and it doesn't even have to be a strategist. If you know what you want to blog about and you've got the topics down and you just need someone to write up the blog posts and put them up on your website for you, a content marketer can absolutely do that for you, and it's usually cheaper. I have a client that I do that for. He sends me the topics, I write them up, he puts them up on his website. It's pretty inexpensive, but still effective because he tells me how effective it is and he's still hiring me. So that's the kind of thing, and that can save you a lot of time, especially if it's something that takes you a really long time. I know I can write pretty quickly, I've talked to people who take much longer to write the same amount of content that I can write, and it's not going to be as effective because they haven't really thought about how to write about it in terms that their audience can understand and that speaks to their audience's pain points. So that is what you're going to want to do first and foremost, is get someone to write consistently. Next up, the second reason is your blog post topics. And again, I've kind of touched on this already, but I see it a lot with small business owners where they write about whatever comes to mind. They write about the shiny new thing in their industry. Maybe they did something in their personal life that reminded them of something in their business and they decided to write about that. And that may or may not be interesting to your target audience, and it may or may not speak to their pain points. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that the topics that you're covering for your blog speak to your audience's pain points. You want to make sure that there's a search volume for that particular topic. You want to make sure people are looking for information on it, but you also want to make sure that it hasn't been covered to death by everyone else. If inspiration strikes and you think you should write about such and such, and you do write about such and such, maybe you're competing with a ton of other content that's already out there, and you're never going to show up in searches because all that content beat you to it. Everyone else on the internet in your industry is already writing about it. So you have to make sure that you get into that gap of something that is being searched for, that people are looking for information on, but has not already been covered to death. So that's your content gap. That is SEO gold. And that leads perfectly into the next reason. Reason number 3 that you should not do your own content marketing is because a professional can do a much better job of getting you to show up in searches, right? We can do the blog post topics, we can do the keyword research, we can make sure it's long enough, we can get the subheadings in there, we can get the keywords in the headline, in the subheadings, we can do the research to make sure the headline is optimized, because again, you want a headline with the right keywords in the right place, you want it long enough but not too long. There's a whole science to every aspect of your blog post. Of just one blog post. A lot of work goes into creating one blog post sometimes. So again, save time and energy by hiring someone to do it for you, and they'll do it better because they know the science behind every single aspect of that blog post. So it's going to show up in searches. You're going to have the right keywords. Google is going to notice that. You're going to have those subheadings. You're going to break up the content. Google is going to notice that. If the headline is, again, optimized because you've got the right keywords, Google is going to notice that. And then, again, it has to be the right length. It can't be too short, can't be too long. It has to be just right, and it has to be emotional. It has to speak to your customers' pain points in a way that makes them click. Because if the headline is not compelling, you're not going to get them to do anything else, right? They're not even going to get to the rest of your content, much less the call to action. So hire a content marketer so that you can show up in those searches and do a better job of attracting, engaging, and converting those leads online. Which leads us to our next number 4 point is a professional can do a much better job of engaging and converting. So they got to your website, they found your blog, now what? How are you going to get them to take the next step in the buyer journey? First of all, you need to make sure that your content is engaging, and then you need the right call to action at the very end. A lot of people just want to go straight for that buy button. It's like, okay, they're on my blog and they read my blog post and now they're going to buy from me, right? Well, maybe, not always. If you're in a B2C industry with a fairly low cost product or service, yeah, they might go straight for the buy button. But if you're in a B2B industry like financial planning or insurance, or if you're an attorney, those tend to be higher cost leads who are weighing their options. Maybe they're a little hesitant to buy because it's a bigger purchase for them, right? So maybe you're going to have to lead them through the funnel a little bit more. Maybe it makes more sense to invite them to subscribe to your newsletter or follow you on social media or read another blog post on a similar topic. All of those pieces are essential to converting them, because if you ask them to buy and they're not ready to buy, you're going to lose them. They're going to click away. They're not going to come back. You've lost that lead forever. So you have to have the right call to action in the right place at the right time. And a content strategist can absolutely help you figure out where your your target audience is in the buyer journey when they reach each piece of content, so that you've got that perfect call to action. And again, we want to make sure that content is engaging enough so that they keep reading all the way to the call to action. My very first client that I ever wrote blog posts for was an attorney who was writing his own blog posts before he hired me to write for him, and I started looking over his blog posts to get an idea of what I was expected to write about, and they were so confusing. He jumped from one topic in one paragraph to a completely different topic in another paragraph without any kind of a segue or explanation as to how he got from point A to point B. It was very confusing. And he's an attorney, right? He's a very smart man who's obviously capable of writing and putting pieces of content together, but this was not an effective blog post. It was something that jumped around, it confused me. I did eventually manage to figure out what he was talking about, but I had to work for it. Your target audience is not gonna work for it. As soon as you make them work for it, as soon as you confuse them, if you bore them, they're out immediately. It's because all it takes is a click for them to leave. There is no motivation for them to stick around and try to figure things out, right? For me, he was paying me, so that was my motivation for sticking around and figuring out what he was talking about in that particular blog post. But your target audience, your potential clients, don't have that same motivation. They're gonna give you money potentially. So if you don't convince them right off the bat that you understand their needs and what you can do for them, they're gonna click away. They're gonna say, okay, thanks, I'm gonna find what I need somewhere else. And then again, you've lost that lead forever. They're probably not coming back. So it is absolutely essential that you either you figure out how to do it yourself, or you hire someone who knows how to write that content that is engaging and can convert those leads into customers. Finally, the fifth and last reason that you absolutely should not do your own content marketing is, well, I mean, you can. For this last reason, I would say you can do your own content marketing, but I hear a lot of people saying that they don't want to hire someone because they're afraid it's not going to sound like them. That's not true. A good content marketer can absolutely mimic your voice. One of my first clients, I started writing for her, and her husband couldn't even figure out which posts she had written versus which posts I had written, because it sounded so much like her. But it was more engaging, it was a little more conversational, the grammar was better. And again, studies show that if your grammar is not spot on, even a small typo can make people click away. So yes, a professional content marketer can sound like you, but better, right? So we can get your voice in there, we can use your terminology, your turns of phrases, cover the topics you wanna cover, but in a way that engages your audience, that speaks to their needs and convinces them that you got what they need. And again, do it in a way that is engaging and grammatically correct and free of typos. So at the very least, yes, you can do it yourself, but if you do, at the very least, hire an editor to make sure that you don't have any of those typos or grammatical errors, because those do cost you leads. And that is it. Those are the 5 reasons that you absolutely should not do your own content marketing for your small business. If you need help, we are here. We provide all sorts of content marketing services. If you just want someone to write blog posts for you, if you just want someone to tell you what to blog about and let you write the blog posts yourself, or if you want someone to do both, those are all things that we cover. So we are at avwritingservices.com. If you have any questions about content marketing, feel free to reach out to me. I am at info@avwritingservices.com. That's it for me. Have a great week and happy marketing.